Hey, this is Anthony Meisner, Land Title. Came to bring you your big Boulder County market update for the month. Let's kind of dive right into what's happening. And I think the biggest takeaway so far is that active units have really started to come back in line with last year. You've had about 4 months of decreasing inventory off the market, people really expiring listings, probably more so than they have in the past seasonally. The average sold price year over year is up 1.9% across the whole county, so that's a decent sign. But the under contract numbers were up almost 7% from last October. So those are good signs. Now, let's kind of dive into this inventory thing just a little bit further. Now, if you look at it by marketplace, certain markets are obviously handling this very different than others. The city of Boulder is up 26% detached single family from this time last year. There's just a lot more inventory available. Now, it is a higher price point, so it's a tough market in some ways like that, but this is abnormal consistently to the rest of the county. Superior's down and Louisville are down, so maybe less of those Marshall Fire rebuild sales taking place, kind of coming back more in line with what you would expect. But the rest of the county is only up about 10%. So that all being said, there's really a tale of three separate markets there. If you look at the attached market, this is a very different market. The city of Boulder itself is down 8% in inventory. It looks like a lot of stuff has come off the market and gotten re-rented. City of Erie has a little bit of a decrease in inventory, same with the city of Louisville and the city of Superior. Overall, the attached inventory is only down about 2%, but places like Lafayette right now have 20% more inventory. Places like Longmont have 10% more inventory. So some big inventory increases in the L towns. Now, if you look at month supply of inventory, this really tells you kind of where the flow is in the marketplace, right? 3.67 months of inventory in detached, but definitely not created equal, right? City of Boulder is at 5 months of inventory, where most of the towns out in the county are somewhere between Louisville at 2.3 months up to Erie at really 3.17 months. So it's still very much not a ton of inventory out there for the detached single family market unless it's expensive. Now, if you look at the attached market, very different story. 5 months in Boulder, but also 5 months in Niwot, 5 months in Longmont, 5 months in Lafayette or Louisville, right? These 4.6, 4.8 months, it's all very similar across the county. Superior and, 3.8 months, but Erie being the lowest, closer to that 2.8 months range. Granted, keep in mind, this is the Boulder County side. But that being said, so much more inventory in attached comparatively to the detached market. Days in MLS, how long does it take to sell, right? You can see some of the slowest markets out there, Niwot at 72 days, but high-end price points, and Erie at 56 days because it has so much inventory, lots to choose from. But the quickest market this month being Longmont at 38 days, which sort of has been the trend. Now, if we look at the attached market, this is a very different world. You got to ignore the Niwot stat because there's not really any attached in Niwot, but 70 days in Boulder, so it's taking a lot longer to sell. 31 days in Louisville, 28 days in Superior. Some of that newer inventory is selling pretty quick. It's pretty cool. Now, if you look at it by actives and sold by price range, I combined all this for you so you can see it. But the higher end luxury stuff has been selling remarkably well this year, right? Lots of people parking money in Boulder County. That's good news, but there is an awful lot of inventory still sitting on the marketplace. Excuse me. About 270 units, over 2 million. So lots of units getting up there and only 23 sales. So lots to choose from. Not a lot of buyers, but lots more sales than we're used to in the past. The one that's being affected the most by interest rates being a little bit higher still is still that 1.5 to 2 million range. Less sales taking place there. But, across the, average to median range of the market, we're really starting to see that buyers start slowly coming off the sidelines, right? We're up 5% in any given one of those. Now, if we look at month supply of inventory and days on market, we broke it out separately because it's so drastically different. But one common trend here that you can see is days on market for product that's going under contract really sits around that 45 day mark across every price range, right? It's very unique to see that, but it's happening probably because newer inventory, it's been out there, but it's, shifting. The reason that, the older stuff is sitting and waiting longer is stuff is getting stale or stagnant. It might just be overpriced. It also may not be buttoned up and in the best condition. And so it sits longer and longer. More unique stuff when you have less buyers in the marketplace takes longer to sell. But stuff that's in great locations, great condition, is selling at all price ranges pretty quickly. The big difference, though, when you go look at it by month supply of inventory, anything under 1 million, less than 3 months of inventory, it's still a fairly balanced market down there in a lot of ways. Now, you get up over 1 million, or 1 to 2 million or 4 months of inventory, 2 million and up, 6 months, 9 months, 21 months over 3 million. It's a lot of inventory to look at up there. And if you look at it from the attached perspective, the luxury stuff's doing the same thing. Lots of inventory to look at, but the really cool stuff is still selling super fast. The big difference is under 1 million, we still have that 4 to 5 months range of inventory, and it's taking that 65 days to sell in many cases. So it just is taking longer because there's just not as many buyers there. Now, if we look at average sales price, let's talk about really how to have this conversation around price. The interesting part is your year-over-year number is showing pretty poorly this month at minus 4%, but the trailing 12-month data would really give us a different sort of summary, right? I mean, if you look at it, Boulder City over the last 12 months is down 0.4%. The county as a whole is flat. Now, certain markets are struggling more than others, like the city of Lafayette is down 3.5%. Niwot's off quite a bit, but it's also one of those luxury markets that doesn't take much to swing here and there. The interesting part is Louisville and Superior still have that much higher price point than they had a year ago. Lots of rebuild stuff being more expensive, newer product type. And then, of course, Erie and Longmont gives us a good gauge on the market out there in the county of really what's happening. And it's just slightly down, 0.7% in Longmont and 0.3% Erie. You go to the attached side of the market, this is where you can really feel the price drops in some ways, right? Even though the trailing 12-month number shows 2%, you look at like a Lafayette, for example, and they're down 10% in average sales price over the last 12 months. That's a pretty extreme number. And if you look at Longmont, down 8.6% for their attached products, Superior down 6.5%. Those are big numbers. Now, the city of Boulder is clearly putting out new product in this price point, and the higher end stuff is going when the lower end stuff is not. So 6% rise in sales price in Boulder, but I don't think that means that there's a 6% rise in the price of those houses. I do think that we are just selling much, much more expensive. You can see the average sales price last month, $740,000 compared to over the last 12 months where it was $660,000. So definitely unique times in many ways. In the attached market, the sold units, you can see this year to date that we can see combined in the marketplace, we're up about 4% year to date across the whole market. We're having a really good end of the year, so expect that to continue to rise just a little bit. We did have good under contracts in October, so obviously that should carry into November closings. Now, certain markets favored better than others. Boulder did better. Erie's done better by about 7%. Some markets have done worse, right? I mean, for example, Lafayette is down 7% in closings. Niwot's down about 29%, but that's not that many units. So take it with a grain of salt. But Superior and Louisville, because of all the Marshall Fires rebuilds, because of the cool new inventory coming in the market, are up 25 and 28% in sales. So big numbers out of them. If you look at the sold to list price, this just tells you how much different is it than a year ago if you're a buyer, right? The only issue is it's missing a lot of information here. We're showing 97.8% list sale price, which would normally mean on $1 million home, you get, $978,000. Well, the other real issue is that you don't have concessions in here and you definitely don't have price drops in here, but it tells me over time, year over year, we're down by about 0.45%. 0.45% would be like a half a percentage point less than the average person was getting for their home. So it is getting more competitive. We know that more and more homes are getting price concessions. So we generally are feeling a little bit more strapped as a seller. Buyers, you're getting a really good deal right now. So I think as you're continuing to get better and better deals, this isn't going to last forever, especially as interest rates start to dip down and buyers re-enter the marketplace. So is next year a transitioning year? It's hard to say. You can definitely wait and see. Really dependent on interest rates. But until something changed in the interest rate environment or prices really dramatically come down, which they don't seem to be doing, then you really will kind of be more of the same. So feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. Always ask questions, reach out to me if you have any other market data needs or anything. And this is Anthony with Land Title. Catch you next time.